So your favourite TV show is over. It's sad, but all things must come to an end eventually, and whether or not the ending lives up to your expectations, nothing will ever be able to take away that feeling you felt when you first watched through the show. But there's always going to be that thought lingering in the back of your head. What happens next? After all, you spent years with these characters. It's only natural to want to know what happens to them once the show has ended. Well, do I have the perfect hot new narrative device for you? The time-jumping TV finale. The perfect way to cram in as much information about the future of your characters in as little time as possible, providing much-needed closure for the audience and negating the need for any unsolicited fanfiction. Of course, time jumps have been used in storytelling for years. However, using time jumps specifically to wrap up the story in TV is relatively new. There's more than one way to do it as well. And a quick warning, there's going to be spoilers for everything I'm about to talk about, so proceed with caution. The first example I found of this was the series finale of Scrubs, when JD imagines his potential future continuing his relationships with everyone he met while working at Sacred Heart. This scene acts as a sort of prototype for this trope, especially because unlike all the other shows I'll talk about, this is a fantasy and therefore only a potential future and not entirely canon. But I think, like myself, most fans consider this to be exactly what the future holds for JD and friends, as well as being the perfect way to end the show, as this was the last episode of Scrubs that we ever got. Ever! Like I said earlier, there is more than one way to do this. The first is doing a jump between the penultimate and the final seasons. A good example of this is New Girl. Season 7 jumps forward 3 years and then continues on from there. With this method, there's only one jump, and it doesn't particularly have to be between the seasons, but it should be far enough back from the finale to allow us to get used to the new status quo. Because that's the point here. It gives us a taste of where these characters are in the next chapter of their lives, but still leaves the door open quite a lot. This method is particularly useful at solidifying relationships. The only thing sitcoms love more than a good will they won't they love story is saving the conclusion of that love story for the last episode. Largely because with most of those relationships, the characters have already been together at some point during the run of the show, so it would be rehashing a lot of old plot lines just to start their relationship up again. So in New Girl, they can have Jess and Nick get back together in the classic finale fashion, then jump forward a few years to get to the next stage of their relationship. But what if 3 years isn't enough? What if I want to see the next 20 years of these people's lives? Well, you could have multiple jumps, possibly all in the last episode. Say something like How I Met Your Mother, where even though Ted's story concludes in 2014, he fills in all of the gaps between then and 2030. Now, if you saw my last video, I already delved pretty deep into the finale of How I Met Your Mother, so how about another example? The Parks and Rec finale followed a very similar formula, giving us closure on all of our favourite characters as we saw glimpses of their futures. With this method, you may not get the future fleshed out quite as much, but what we do get to see is a lot more of it, which does ultimately give us a better idea of what's in store for the characters as we can easily fill in the blanks, even if we are only shown a few moments of the future. But wait a second, didn't Parks and Rec also do a time jump at the start of its last season like New Girl? I guess that makes it the ultimate example of the time-jumping TV finale. Not quite. What if I wanted to know everything about the characters in a show? And not just everything they do in life, but everything they do in the afterlife as well. Luckily, that show exists. The Good Place, from creator of Parks and Rec, Michael Schur, which means he's now 2 for 2 in ending shows with a time-jumping TV finale. At this point, it's almost a guarantee that Brooklyn Nine-Nine will end in a similar fashion. The Good Place, however, was never afraid of a good time jump. In fact, in the 4 seasons, the show takes place over hundreds of years, although I'm not sure how long that is when you convert that to Jeremy Bearimy. The finale is, however, in a whole other league when it comes to time jumps. It's unclear exactly how long it takes, but we get to see the characters live out their afterlife in paradise until they have literally experienced everything they could ever possibly want to. There's no need for speculating what happens to these characters in the future, as we quite literally see them cease to exist. Talk about closure. But even though we get that amount of information on 4 of the main characters, the futures of Janet and especially Michael are still left up in the air. Even with the amount of detail the finale gives, it can't fill in every blank, which I think is the biggest takeaway here. The time jumps are great for answering some questions that fans may have, but you can't possibly answer all of them, and the more that you do answer, the higher the likelihood is that you give an answer that they won't like. So the key is to find a happy medium. I, for one, am excited to see where time jumping TV finales are going to go from here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Obviously, I couldn't mention every show that did this, and I did purposely stick to comedies. But if I missed your favourite time-jumping TV finale, let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, I've got a lot more videos coming soon.